everyone. Welcome to our Personal Branding Fundamentals webinar. I'm very excited to have you join us today. I think there'll be more people joining us as we go along, but I value your time and so I want to start on time. We decided to launch this Wholeness webinar series about a month ago, and we want to cover topics that really are affecting people as they enter into the world of work. And so we're sharing our experience today, and we wanted to make this a very interactive session. So if you have any questions, please pop them into the chat. We want to know what you want to learn about today, any questions that you have, so we make sure that this is a valuable session for you. So I'm Cheryl Bernardi. I've had 22 years of work experience. I've had 15 job titles. I've worked in 8 different industries, and I'm now in my 3rd career. And no, I will not tell you my age. You can ask me that later. But essentially, what I want to talk about in the webinar today is just how do we position ourselves in this constantly changing world? How do we shift and adapt to what the world requires from us? And so I'm inviting people that I meet along the way that also have a passion for youth development, have a passion for training, have a passion for learning, have a passion for growing. And one of those people is Pamela Cherry. So the way this webinar works is that we record an interview with our guest, and then we share snippets in the actual webinar, but the person who we've interviewed is also available on the call today. So Pam, can you please unmute and introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Cheryl. Hi, everyone. It's so lovely to see you. Thank you for making the time to be here. So just to introduce myself, and I can see 1 or 2 people that I actually know, but I'd like to see myself really as a career guide. I'm a career development coach, and I give a lot of talks around career topics. I work with scholars, I work with graduates, I work with young professionals, and my passion really is just to see everyone thrive, especially people who haven't had access to the information or the networks or the knowledge about how to move forward. And so a lot of the work that I do is really around becoming your best self and putting your best self forward, and personal branding is a topic that is so close to my heart, and I look forward to having this conversation with each and every one of you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Cheryl.
Thank you so much, Pam. I really appreciate that. I think you are in for a treat today, everyone. Some of you know Pam, understand the kind of depth that she has, which is why I love her, because I'm all about wholeness. I'm all about getting beyond the head level and getting to the heart level and actually dealing with the real core issues of identity, purpose, and meaning, because that's what drives our success in the real world, right? So if you have any questions or comments, guys, in terms of what you'd like for us to cover or what you'd like to learn today, please share that in the comments and I will respond to that as soon as I can. So just an overview today of what we'll be covering. We're going to be looking at what is a wholeness approach to personal branding. So if you Google personal branding, you'll come up with amazing TED Talks about how to position yourself, how to put yourself out there, what are the fundamentals about it. But we want to really help you to connect who you are to what you do on a daily basis. We've seen now with this global pandemic that there is really an imperative for us to align our personal selves with our professional selves. That's something I felt for all of my working life, that I had to bring who I was to the workplace. I try to put my best foot forward in the workplace, but if I was still struggling personally in my relationships or my finances, that showed up in the way that I worked. And so we want to talk about how you can clearly communicate your value. We want to talk about how you can give yourself permission to fully inhabit your true self. It sounds like this wonderful thing that is very difficult to do. It is challenging, but not impossible. And then we also want to help you to be intentional about how you show up in the world. So, like I said, we have pre-recorded an interview with Pam, and I'll be playing little snippets that I've asked the questions. And then as you listen to the snippets of the interviews, please make sure that if you have a question or you want to clarify something, pop it into the comments. We will have a Q&A section at the end. Please let me know also if you can hear the sound correctly. Hi everyone, I'm Cheryl Bernardi, and I'm very excited today to introduce to you Pamela Cherry. I met her about 2 years ago before the crazy lockdown things happened, and we were fortunate to have quite a few conversations. And each time I spoke to Pamela, I just connected more and more. She has a passion for young people. She has really keen insight into what they need, what's missing as they enter into the world of work, as do I. And so I'm very, very privileged and excited to welcome Pam and Cherry. Hi, Pam. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi. Thanks, Cheryl, and hi, everyone. I'm really excited and I'm honored to be here. Thanks for inviting me into this conversation. When you asked me, I was like, yes, like definitely. And it's a beautiful conversation that we're going to be having today, an important one. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we've been promising to do this for a while, Pam. So I'm glad we're finally doing it. As a career development coach and a speaker, obviously, I'm going to start out by asking you what exactly is personal branding? Because I know you have such a keen passion for this. So tell us your definition of personal branding.
Mm. I'm glad that you asked for my definition because if you go onto Google, you'll find so many different versions. And I just want to give a story behind what personal branding means to me. So I spent a lot of my career working with brands, both consumer brands and employer brands. And the idea was these companies had an offering, they had a product, they had something that they wanted to sell um, to an audience. And what needed to happen was communication needed to take place. So, what was it about their product or brand or company that stood apart from their competitors? Why should someone come and work at your company as opposed to a competitor? Why should they buy your lipstick brand? And so, just in working in that space and working with employer and consumer brands, I realize that whether you are a brand that's trying to sell something, there is a part in which you need to be able to communicate. And that's what personal branding really is. And so, as an individual, you have something to offer. You might be in the workspace, you might still be a student, you might be an entrepreneur or business person, but everyone has something to offer. Everyone has an audience that they want to engage with, and they want to be appealing to that audience. And a lot of the times, people don't think that they have personal brands, and we're going to talk about that. But if you are if you're going for an interview, you're taking your personal brand with you. By sending your CV, you're already engaging and communicating your brand. And so, personal branding to me is really just a way in which you are represented as an individual. So, the way your personality comes out, the certain traits that you have. So, if you think of a brand, what are the associations that you get when you think of this brand? And that's pretty much what you need to think about when it comes to your personal brand. So, what associations do you want people to have about you? What messages are you sending directly or indirectly? And so, when you're not in the room, what is your personal brand saying about you? So, I don't have a sentence definition. You can find those online. But that pretty much is my story of what personal branding is. It's how do we experience Cheryl?
Hmm. No, I love that you said that, Pam. I love that you spoke about how, as much as there's consumer brands, there's also basically what message you're putting out there in the world and how you are communicating that is in the way that you pitch or present yourself to the world. And so I'm just reflecting on my own brand over the years. I told you earlier on that I started my first job at the age of 17 before my 18th birthday. And if I look back, the Cheryl then is very different to the Cheryl now because
Mm,
of the trauma I experienced through various forms of abuse in my life. This is why I'm passionate about wholeness, because who you are, we can't separate that from what we do. So the challenges that I was having in my personal life echoed into my professional life. So I look back and I cringe in my early stages of my career of some of the stupid things that I did. Not
No, but I
because
think everyone cringes. We all can cringe. If you were to go back into like my gallery or my social media when I was in my 20s or when I was 19, trust me, there is enough to cringe about. Yeah,
so what
but
you're
keep
saying,
going.
Pam, is that we have permission to evolve. Okay, that's really what I want to kind of bring across there is that just as brands evolve, so do your personal brand evolve. As you grow, your brand evolves. So I can be much more confident now in saying this is who Cheryl is because I've had a lot of growth and I've had to choose things that help me to get maturity down the line. Okay, so I hope that's given you some clarity on what is a personal brand. How do you start establishing your personal brand? And so essentially what we're trying to do in this session is just help you to figure out what imprint am I making on the world? What is my impression when I show up to a job interview, when I take on this new job, when I am in a meeting and I'm trying to share my ideas? What are people perceiving of me? And what do I think I'm bringing to the table? So, are there any comments and questions before we move along in terms of what is a personal brand? Everyone good? Okay, let's move along. So, essentially, when we look at the wholeness approach to personal branding, you come back to the fundamental of who am I? These are identity questions. Why am I here? One thing I definitely learned in my 22 years of working is that a job, a company, a job title would never give me identity. I try to find myself in work, and work can be a very good crucible to forge an identity because you see, oh, I can actually do these tasks that I'm really good at and other people are not. And so this is the value I can bring to the team, this is the value I can bring to the organization. But before we even start in our work life, we have to start building a sense of asking ourselves the question multiple times in seasons of our lives, who am I and why am I here? And our identity is formed in terms of our culture, in terms of where we grew up, our economic status. Many factors have gone into who am I. And the thing is, we're not fixed. There's no fixed identity. We can change, we can grow, we can develop. And this is really a discovery that you're going to be looking at for the rest of your life. You're going to be looking at who am I? Who am I becoming? What do I want to be? You never have it totally figured out, but building a strong sense of self awareness is going to help you grow. The next step you want to take in terms of your personal brand is once you start having a sense of when I started out working, all that I knew that I could do well was to write. I got A's for English. I could do compositions. I could do essays. I read a lot of books in my teenage years. I got accepted into Wits University. I didn't have money to study, and so I thought, what can I do? I can write. So I went to the community newspaper that was about 3 k's from my house. I walked there, and I said to the lady, "Hey, I want to get some work experience, and let me help you write articles." And that was really how I started my career. I had no real plan. I had no real understanding of what I was going to do, what I could do. All that I knew was that I could write. So sometimes it's just something simple like that. Even if you have a degree, you have theoretical knowledge, but now you have to apply that into real world environment. So once you start figuring out even just a little part of who you are, start telling the world about it. Don't wait until you have this encyclopedia of knowledge about who you are because that's going to grow and develop as you grow. So start telling the world who you are. Finding and owning your voice is such a big aspect of your early career development stages because we get into the world of work and depending on what we were told about who we are and what our value is, we take those beliefs into the workplace. So work becomes a place where it's a new environment to test what we're believing about ourselves, to start speaking up in ways that we can be heard and can be respected. Even if something is kind of shut down, maybe you have an idea for a project and it doesn't actually work out the way you think it's going to work out. At least you're trying, you're moving forward. Don't be afraid of failure because failure is the pathway to success. Another important step in defining your personal brand is learning how to create harmony in your relationships, in your career, and in your finances. So, this took me many years to learn as an early career professional because I didn't have healthy relationships in my personal life. I was very scared as a person. I had a stutter in high school. I was very insecure starting out in the world of work. All I could do was put my hands to writing, and that was sometimes, easier to hide there. But as I started growing, I realized I needed to step up. I had to push beyond my comfort zone and start to grow. Why do I mention finances here? Because this is something most people never ever talk about. They will tell you, okay, well, you need to study hard, get a degree, get a job, and then you can be economically sound. But no one tells you how to manage these finances. And it's not just young people. I'm coaching people who are in their 30s and 40s, and they still don't know how to keep to a budget, or there's still a lot of debt in their life and they feel stuck. So it's so important to understand that who we are in our personal lives will inevitably show up in our professional lives. So creating alignment is going to give you a peace of mind that who you are at home is who you are at work. And so you don't have to pretend to be something that you're not. This is what we call the wholeness triad. And so being aware of what you want to achieve in your career, how do I have to grow relationships? Relationships with myself. Do I understand who I am? Relationships with others. Is it healthy? Is it not codependent? Is it a place where I can feel like I can be expanding my relationships to be with safe people and not unsafe people who will hurt me? And can I master my money instead of letting money master me? Because the biggest thing with finances is that we think that if we just have more money, then that's just going to be the reason why we never have to do a budget. But that's not actually true. Money management is not about just having more, it's about managing what you have so that you can have more. And effective leaders in the world have higher levels of self awareness. They're constantly growing, they're constantly reflecting, they're constantly seeing, what am I believing that might not be sound belief about myself? They're constantly seeking feedback from people that they trust, coaches, mentors, friends, business partners, peers. They're asking for feedback. They're wanting to grow. They're not afraid to have a growth mindset and constantly work on themselves and evolve. Another important aspect of growing a personal brand is connecting with your tribe, and that's where you'll find your vibe. So I have to unpack that a bit because this kind of stage happens more in your mid-career. But when you first start out working in your 20s, that's when you're learning a lot about yourself. So give yourself time to learn. I know if you're coming into the world of work and you're Gen Z, there's so much pressure on you to be a millionaire by 21, you know? And we're not just comparing ourselves to our neighbors anymore, we're comparing ourselves to people around the world, peers around the world. So we see with young people a lot of mental health challenges because they feel like they're not successful enough. They have all this pressure to present this perfect image in the world, and they're not actually secure in who they are really. So they're trying to be what they think they're supposed to be, but there's a disconnect there. So when I say connect with your tribe, you will find your vibe. I mean, the kind of work that makes your heart sing, your professional sweet spot. That comes when you start chipping away at things that are not actually aligned to what you do. So maybe you studied accounting, but you actually love art. And so you can do both, but your heart kind of always goes towards the art section. But you've been told there's money in being an artist. You can't really, get a livelihood from there. So get something to fall back on. We've heard that many times. Fall back on a qualification or degree. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you totally sell yourself out to a career path that your heart's not in it, you're going to be stressed out, you're going to be frustrated, you're going to be angry at the world, you're not going to be a blessing in that environment that you're going to be in because you don't want to be there. People can see that. I know we've all been wearing masks the past year and a half, but people see past our intangible masks. We think that people are believing the projected image that we are presenting to the world. But you also see through other people's masks. You also see that there's a disconnect between what they think that they are and what we experience them as. So it might take a while to get to the space where you find the kind of people that you can connect with. And also, when you're making a career transition, it can be very scary because now you thought you want to go in this direction, you're shifting. There's going to always be shifts when it comes to your career development, but finding people that understand what you are passionate about the same things, that really helps you to breathe a sigh of relief and think, okay, I'm not the only one who actually wants to go along that path. Pam has been one of those people for me in terms of finding my tribe. And then as you get stronger and more confident in developing your personal brand, you start to be able to offer your gift to the world. Ultimately, we are wired to work and have meaningful work and to impact the world, to have a legacy, right? So you might not maybe feel that as strongly when you're first starting out and you want to establish yourself and you want to get your car and your house, and you have to do those things. Those are fundamental, foundational things. But as you do that, you're going to start going to work environments where you realize, you know, I really like this aspect of my job, but I don't like this aspect of my job. And pay attention to those things. Try and do more of the things that are in your strength zone, and try and limit where you can the things that are not in your strength zone, because that defines what your signature work is. When you are in your strength zone, doing the things that you love, doing the things that you are naturally gifted at, that's going to help you to feel passionate, energized, and people will start noticing, hey, this person really loves doing presentations. I hate presentations, but they love doing presentations. Let them do more of that. This person really can look at data and unpack data and help us to make sense of data. Okay, I want to go to them to solve those problems. So, what impact do you want to make over the course of your life? These are questions you want to start thinking about as you start thinking about, who am I? What do I want to achieve with my life? I really like this quote by John Jantz. He says, personal branding is the art of becoming knowable, likable, and trustable. So it's great that you are figuring all this stuff out, but if you never share that with the world, no one else knows what you can become and what you have to offer. So in this next snippet of the interview with Pam, we talk about how do you establish a personal brand? How do you start doing that? So let's listen in on that. This is something I've noticed, and and we have discussed this. Something you also share is that there's a lot of pressure now for young people to achieve a lot. Actually, what takes people 20, 30 years to achieve when they're first starting out in their first kind of year of work. So, what does the emerging generation, in your perspective, need to understand about personal branding and its link to their professional achievement?
Mm. So you are right. I work with young students, graduates, and I'm attached to a scholarship program, the Michelle Scholarship Program. And a lot of the conversations we have are really around this, around how you um, marry your professional or your academic self to your personal brand, and how you use that in a way to help you stand out and secure opportunities, graduate opportunities once you are done. And so it's one thing to have good grades and to have all the accolades and achievements that all the employers are looking for, or potential clients that you could be working with if you are in the entrepreneurial space. It's one thing to have all the criteria, and that's usually what you'd be screened against. But when it's all said and done, it boils down to who you are and your why, and your personal brand has to communicate that. And I think now more than ever, your survival and your success is strongly linked to the way in which you position your personal brand, the way you put it out, and the clarity that you send in the way you communicate your personal brand. And so, one thing that I would like to say to any student or graduate who's looking for a job, or if you are looking to put yourself into a space where your business, if you're a business owner, really depends on your marketing of yourself and your brand. What I want to say is now more than ever, this is the time to really get deliberate about who you are, what you want, and really work around the messages that you send in the different platforms, be it face to face or online. You need to be able to bring all those skills and all those achievements to the table, alongside your personality and your skill set and your uniqueness, to the table. Yeah. So you really, now more than ever, it's about you as the individual and not what you studied.
So yes, Pam, I just love what you said there, just in terms of aligning values with the organization. And Gen Zs, more than ever than previous generations, are really looking for organizations that they can connect with that actually share their values. And so, what happens with university students, graduates going into the workplace is that they feel that disconnect. So, they've been told the story, uh, do good at school, graduate, get a good job, and your life will be fine. What they're finding is that the promise is not delivering because
Mm.
they maybe work in organizations where they felt that this organization stands for fairness and justice. And when you're actually working in the organization, we're seeing that there's So in that clip, we spoke about what you will probably experience when you start working out. You have this ideal of how work is going to be. You have this ideal, this fantasy of how perfect things are going to be when you get into your dream company or work with people on projects that you've always wanted to work on. And the reality is that life is tough. There's going to be challenges. You're getting paid to solve problems, and problems are challenging and difficult. And so if we look at just from our experience, what are the stages of personal brand development, of going into the world of work from a survivalist point of view? And actually, Pam shares a bit about this of her own journey in the full video. I'll send you the link to the full video. Please listen to that. It's very, very interesting. She talks about how she started in a career journey in a survivalist mode. So did I. I had to find a job and start working. I don't really have a plan about it. So this is generally how people kind of get into their personal brand development because they start out with an ideal. They get into the world of work, they get into a company, they get into a job, and then they kind of fall into a status quo. They get stuck in a routine. It might not be, it probably will not be what you expect it to be. And so we're unsure of what to change and how to take the next step. And we might be there for a year, 2 years, 6 months, depending on where you are in your life and what also if you have and also what is your support system. If you have a strong support system, they might be able to help you to shift things better. But often we get to the stage where we get into the explorative part of our personal brand development because it's a catalyst that shifts us from our current state of passivity in our careers. Either it's a toxic work environment, so maybe it was a really you had a very difficult relationship with your manager, and it became very debilitating, very stressful, and it started to drain your energy and actually kind of make you lose your positivity for your work. Or it could also be unexpected job losses, and we've seen that a lot recently. So something shifts us out of this survivalist mentality, and then we start realizing, but I have to take ownership of my career. And sadly, I think a lot of people don't do that. They are very subject to external environments. They don't have an intrinsic motivation, they have an extrinsic motivation, meaning the things around them will influence what they do or what they don't do. And so, this stage of your personal brand development is where you really start finding opportunities and it starts getting exciting because now you are realizing I can control the narrative of my career. I can decide what I like to do. I remember working at the University of Pretoria and we were being trained by one of the consultants, and she was telling me about how she had designed her work week. She worked 2 days a week on a specific project. She worked from home. She consulted on the other days. Friday, she was able to take a leave, and I looked at that and thought, wow, is that possible? Can people work that way? At that stage of my life, I was very far away from that. I was paying off my debt, so I had to be in a full-time paying job. I didn't feel like I had a lot of opportunities or options, but actually just being exposed to someone who took ownership of their career because she understood I have value to add in the world, and I'm going to position that in a way that makes sense for me. So in our previous webinar, we spoke about exploring unconventional career pathways. And it really is a shift in perspective around how I can make my work around my life and not put my, not adjust my life around my work. So it's possible, guys. We might take a while to get there, but it is possible. And then this stage is where we all want to be in and live in, which is a thriving element and stage of your brand development, where as you are maturing and growing as a person, you're getting more grounded, you're getting more secure, you're getting to see, hey, I can add value in these industries. I've got experience, I have networks, I have some evidence of what I can do. I know that, for example, in my own life, I know that I can fundraise. I know that I can train people. I know that I can do publications. So there's a lot of skill sets I can have that I can sell to different clients. It doesn't have to be one employer. And that's when you start taking ownership and actually leveraging what you have to offer to the world. And that's when your personal brand becomes very, very important, because you're going to be showing and showcasing what you have to do and helping to connect with people who need your skill set. So the strength of your personal brand is really directly proportional to the level of your self-awareness. If you have low self-awareness, you will struggle to develop your personal brand, because you keep thinking that it's external factors that are keeping you from being successful. But those who have successful and strong personal brands are those who take ownership, who say, well, I'm going to position myself in the world, not seek validation or approval from external things, managers or jobs or anything else, but I'm going to actually own who I am, what I can do, and what I can share with the world. And this is really your lifelong journey of self discovery. The Cheryl that is now speaking to you at the webinar today is a far cry from the woman who started out at 17, very unsure of herself, very insecure, and not sure where this is going to end up. And I just want to encourage you, if you are starting out and you kind of feel like your career path is not taking the way you thought it was going to be. I mean, I stumbled into my first couple of jobs. Most people stumble into their first couple of jobs. It makes sense looking back. If you remember that talk by Steve Jobs, he talks about how the dots connect as you go along. So keep moving forward, keep trying, keep knocking on those doors, keep asking people for feedback and saying, what impression do I have when I walk in the room? Speak to friends that you really know care about you, or colleagues that you really feel like you have a good connection with. Get feedback from people to say, if you would recommend me to a future employer, what would you say about me? Be courageous enough to understand what it is that people are perceiving of you versus what you perceive of yourself. Because this is really what we're revealing into the world. This is in our conscious mind. There's a lot down here in our subconscious mind and in our unconscious mind that we're concealing because we don't know about that yet. Other people might know that about us, but we don't know that about us yet. So when you're thinking about the concept of self, right, it really is the sum of your experiences, your beliefs, your motivations, your abilities, and how you bring that all together or how you don't, where this disconnects. So that we can always be improving our level of self-awareness, our level of projecting who we really believe we are into the world. And we have to address this issue of, does the projected image we're giving into the world match the way that people in your life experience you? So we know there's a lot of pressure to look perfect, to be perfect. And we've seen this a lot with young people coming into the world of work. They are so scared of failure. They're so scared to be seen as lacking, of being less than. And we really have to interrogate this, because we want to build authenticity. We want to build integrity in our personal brand. And we want to have the opportunity to say, who I am is really what I'm presenting to the world. And there's no disconnect there. There's a lot of congruency when it comes to that. And so I want to preach this message to the ends of the earth, because work creates the opportunity to really know ourselves. I discovered so much about who I am, what I could do, what I was capable of. Work became a place where I could see that I'm not just that insecure person that started out at the age of 17. I have gifts, abilities, talents, and that was valuable to people in different organizations at different stages of my life. So you have to ask yourself, what is your approach to work? Do you see work as a slot machine? You go in on a Monday, you clock out on a Friday, you get your pay slip, you kind of repeat the cycle? Is it just something for you to get money? Or is it something that is going to help you to really grow and learn about yourself? We are people who need to have meaning in our lives. We need to have purpose in our lives. I've worked at multiple organizations, and one of the worst things that can happen to an employee is to be frustrated in terms of, I go to work, I put in a lot of effort on this project, but I don't see it moving forward. I don't see where my world is connecting. Like, why am I even here? Is my work actually counting for something? So when you're thinking about a new job and you're thinking about how you're positioning yourself, this messaging can be really um, focused on If you're just looking for what you can get, you'll be asking a question to positioning yourself in terms of, I need something from you. Okay. So you'll most of the time we think about what is the salary? What are the benefits I'm having? What are the office hours? What's in it for me? Right. But someone who is intentional about their personal brand starts thinking about, how can this job help me to grow? I have a vision for my life. I have a purpose for my life. I want to work at Unilever, for example. I'm just using them as example because they have the kind of opportunities where I can get the skill sets I want to learn. So start asking yourself this question, growth questions. How can I contribute value in this organization? What new skill sets will I be able to acquire? How will this role help me to grow personally and professionally? How will this stretch and challenge me beyond my comfort zone? Apply for jobs that are going to stretch you. Don't just apply for jobs that are on the same level and you kind of want more, but you're scared. I've always moved into jobs where I started doing things totally new, totally different because I had to grow. I had to develop. So I see we've got some questions here. Subsista says, how do you ensure that your personal brand is understood and not judged based on the disability one may have? Subsista, I'm going to ask Pam to answer that at the end of it. We'll have some time now for questions. And Sonia says, there's nothing worse than feeling misplaced in a work environment. Sonia, I feel your pain. You know what I've learned? Sometimes you're doing the right kind of work, but it's the wrong environment. So I started my company at the age of 28, 27, 28, my first company. Didn't even know what I was doing. And then I got back into the world of work. I started working in higher education. And that really shifted the way that I thought about pay slips and salaries because when you try and earn your own money and there's no like pay slip at the end of the month, it's very scary. But once I started working in higher education, I found my purpose. I realized I loved working with young people. I wasn't able to have money to study when I finished matric, but I was now able to help other people like me, first generation professionals, those who were the first in their families to get a university education. It felt like poetic justice. But the environment of higher education was not aligned to my personality. I'm someone who is needing to have things moving in a fast pace. We need to kind of see the results of the work I'm doing. I want to have fun while I work. And in a very bureaucratic environment, that's not always the case. And so I was loving the work that I was doing, but it's in the wrong environment. So maybe, Sonia, you are doing the right kind of work, but you're stuck in the wrong environment. And yeah, that's what it took me 10 years to figure out with higher education. But that really helped me to get to my core of where I am today. And so I just want to unpack this. This is what I call the work vortex. And work is very much like the word love. We use it for everything, okay? But actually, there's different types of work. There's work that you love to do. There's work that you would do instead of doing the other kind of boring stuff. There's work that challenges you. There's work that irritates you. Work that you tolerate. Work that will challenge you to grow. And work that you really struggle with. So it's really about how are you um, dissecting what work means. So it's your work is actually your job that you do, but who you can become in the process of doing different tasks. That's what we have to focus on. That's what helps to strengthen our personal brand. So think about these questions when you're thinking about your brand. What am I deeply passionate about? And how can I talk about that on LinkedIn, on Twitter, with my colleagues, or even friends and family around the braai? What can I be the best in the world at? What do I want to be known for? For me, I want to be known as that wholeness lady. Cheryl, oh, the wholeness lady. I want to be known for wholeness. That's my key thing. What drives your economic engine means what are the core skill sets that you have, your abilities, things you're good at, things that people will pay you for, that you can align these things to come together. And so, guys, it's taken us very many years to learn. So don't feel overwhelmed. We will be here to help you along the way. I want to go into this quick clip. This is going to be a few minutes about when is a good time to start your personal brand, and then we'll get into some actual Q&A sessions so we can unpack what you're currently struggling with and how we can give you some good advice along the way. Pam, when is a good time to start your personal brand? Is it when you're 5 and you start a YouTube channel?
I was actually hosting a webinar, but I'll call it a conversation because I prefer to look at it as a conversation. I was hosting a graduate conversation, and um, the question I asked everyone before we started, we're talking about personal branding, is do you have a personal brand? And um, there was a group that definitely said yes, and then there was a group that said no, they didn't, and there was a maybe. And for those who said they didn't have a personal brand, I think one or two of them, it was a group of about 10 in this conversation, and one of them said she has a personal brand, but she's just not ready to put it out. She's not ready to launch it yet. And it was such an interesting conversation. And towards the end of that section, they all then realized that they have personal brands, and everybody has a personal brand. So there's no launch date, there's no perfect time, um, there's no need for perfection or planning. You have a personal brand. It's just whether you're deliberate about it or not. And so, if you haven't been deliberate about it and you go into your workspace, you put your head down and you just do what you need to do, you're still communicating a message. And that's what your personal brand is saying about you. If you are someone who's intentional and knows that when you in your graduate program, this is the right opportunity for you to meet with people for coffees, virtual coffees, really wanting to learn and wanting to grow, showing curiosity. You are communicating a message, and your personal brand is being communicated. If you are on LinkedIn and you're sharing posts about certain topics, if you're commenting on them and you're not the one who actually posted them, you're still communicating. Your personal brand is still communicating. So you might have an empty profile with no picture. Your personal brand is still visible to people. It might not be highly visible, it might not be trending, it might not be seen by most people. But if you apply for an opportunity and you don't have a picture on your LinkedIn profile, you don't have a headline, you never share anything, you forgot to write what you're studying, you're still communicating something about your brand. You're communicating you're not ready to be engaged with. And so, when is the perfect time to launch your brand? It's already live. So the question is, when is the right time to be deliberate about your brand? And that's now. Especially if you have goals for yourself, if you see yourself going somewhere, if there's people you want to engage with, or that you need to engage with to get to the next level, then you should start being more deliberate about your personal brand.
I love that, Pam. Becoming deliberate about your personal brands. And I love that you unpacked the different elements around that. So, the way that you show up in a graduate program is already speaking about your character, about your ability to work, about your willingness to engage with people. And I definitely see a link between being intentional about building your personal brand and also being intentional about building your social network. So,
Mm,
something else that we noticed in the university space is that first generation professionals, which means that their families were not in the white collar space, those children were much less likely to be able to get work because obviously if you know people in certain industries, then you're more likely to be able to access opportunities in that space. But if you don't, that's what's being closed off. So growing that social capital is so important. And so with all of the work that we do with our university clients, we definitely include how to build your network, how to be able to, as you said, becoming intentional about building your brand while on campus, because some of the
mm,
best relationships are built on campus that last lifetimes. I mean, we know in South Africa, there's examples of companies that have started from alumni of universities because they had an idea, they connected with like-minded people, and they build their businesses and their lives based on those relationships. So we will be doing another webinar around how to build your social capital. But like Pam said in that snippet, be intentional about building your brand now. Don't be passive about it. Don't, it's worse to put on a LinkedIn page with no information and no page. Rather delete that for now until you can actually work on it because what we are putting out there is already sending a message. Pam, if you wouldn't mind, let's quickly answer that question that we had. And it was from Sibasisu. He said, how do you ensure that your personal brand is understood and not based on the disability one may have?
yes. Okay. So,
Thanks.
Sibusiso, you're welcome, Cheryl. So I think that it's probably a good thing that Sibusiso hasn't unmuted himself because I want to answer this question without knowing his backstory. And the reason why is because I think when it comes to your personal brand, um, the approach you would take would be the same regardless of your circumstances, regardless of whether you have a disability or not. I would like to still think you are able. I would like to still think that you can contribute and you have value to share. You've got a personality. You have goals for yourself, and anyone would be lucky to have you in the space that you are able to deliver those natural talents to. So I want to first start off by saying that how you view your disability is how other people will respond to it. And Cheryl just mentioned something earlier about how personal branding has a direct relationship with self awareness. And I want to just add an extra layer onto that and to say it has a very strong relationship to self acceptance. Maybe even more than self awareness. So, after you're aware of who you are, your strengths, your weaknesses, the things that you're uncomfortable with sharing that you probably hide, but once you are aware of all these things, it now goes to you accepting yourself and being able to own that. And only when you are able to do that can your personal brand really shine for you. Can it really take you to the places that you want to go? And so I want people, everyone on this call, to realize that personal branding is not just the way we go onto Instagram and we look cute and we show up in ways that might not be realistic to who we truly are. Personal branding is really owning who you are, celebrating that with your scars, with your disabilities, with your shortcomings, along with everything else that you have to offer. So, Sibusiso, I don't know if that answers your question, but I believe that the question you're asking, it almost sounds as if you are able to engage in a job, you are able to offer something, and it's just a question of how do you use your personal brand to almost allow people to see who you are despite your disability. But I think you should own your disability, and if you can do that, you really will get to a place where people will look beyond it or see your disability as beautiful. I hope that answers your question.
Subsista says, yes, thank you for answering the question. I am so grateful for your answer, Pam. And Sonia says, owning your story is key. Agreed. So, we also, in the full interview, talk about the imposter syndrome. So, we can often feel vulnerable in sharing who we are with the world because we're still figuring that out. And depending on how strong our relationships are with ourselves, with other people, how healthy they are, we often are scared to share who we are with the world because we think that kind of like that inner critic voice says, who are you to do this? Who are you to think you're so great? And also, there's been some negative applications of personal branding where people just kind of focus on themselves and talk about themselves. And we don't want to be seen as people who are self indulgent, right? But essentially, if you want to be successful in life, and I think we all do, this is why we want to learn and want to grow and add value in the world, we have to be able to engage in ways that connect us to people that we want to impact. So, how do you match what you have to offer with the actual market need? Think about the problems out there in the world that you feel mad, sad, or glad about. These are things that you feel passionate about. So, for me, things I get mad and sad about is people living below their potential because of things they've experienced in their past, abuse issues, because I've experienced that myself. And what I feel glad and happy about, things that I'm passionate about, is how we can grow and transform. If we look at what's needed for the new worlds of work, a lot of the skills that are needed in the new worlds of work is actually um, EQ skills, personal skills, people interpersonal skills. So those people who can really connect without trying to get something from people, but wanting to connect with people that they feel a shared sense of value with, that's how you're going to grow your personal brand. Show how you solve problems. I had to figure out, if no one else is talking about wholeness, I want to talk about it because it's important to me. And so there is a problem of people feeling disconnected, feeling disengaged, feeling discouraged. But this is how I show that I'm helping to solve the problem by sharing from my own personal story, which can be scary because you're exposing yourself to the world. But when you do that, it's actually amazing because other people can say, hey, that's me too, Cheryl. I also had a difficult childhood. I also got into debt. Oh, wow, you got out of it? That's great. Tell me more. We're in a space now where people are so open to hearing about other people's stories, and that's all you're doing. You're sharing your story with the world, and those who can connect and engage will do that. You won't connect with everybody, that's not the goal, but it's to find your tribe, remember? And that's how you find the work that you're really meant to do. This is something that I also wanted to share. When you start out, there's like a kind of golden thread in your life. And if you look back at as you get older, there's always something that you knew deep inside. This is what I really want to do with my life. When I was in my early 20s, I wanted to work with young people. I wanted to work with women. I wanted to help people to transform from victims to victors. That was also my own process. So there's something in your heart that already has a compass. So listen to that, even though other people maybe say, trying to give you sound advice because they're trying to be helpful. Pay attention to what your heart is saying because your head's going to help you to go into the right direction. We don't have a lot of time right now, so I want to kind of skip through some of these things. But this is something we can also help you with in terms of how do you find your purpose. This is what we use in Whole Person Academy, where we help people to find the synergy, the kind of sweet spot. This is where your personal brand, your axis of your personal brand really is, because it involves your identity. Who am I? How do I see myself in the world? What are my passions? What am I dreaming about? And what are my abilities? And so we unpack this process in our coaching sessions because sometimes we need help to figure out how to connect our head to our heart. That's I need definitely help to that. I'm going to play a small part of this session because we talks about how you should share your personal information versus your professional stuff. So essentially, if I have a Twitter account, what I'm sharing on there could actually be detrimental if I'm looking for a job. And if I'm speaking against a company, I can't obviously look for work there. So I'm going to play a small snippet of this because I think it's really important.
So the question is, when is the right time to be deliberate about your brand? And that's now, especially if you have goals for yourself, if you see yourself going somewhere, if there's people you want to engage with, or that you need to engage with to get to the next level, then you should start being more deliberate about your personal brand.
I love that, Pam. Becoming deliberate about your personal brand. And I love that you unpacked the different elements around that. So, the way that you show up in a graduate program is already speaking about your character, about your ability to work, about your willingness to engage with people. And I definitely see a link between being intentional about building your personal brand and also being intentional about building your social network. So,
Mm.
something else that we noticed in the university space is that first generation professionals, which means that their families were not in the white collar space.
Something that I think a lot of people struggle to navigate around. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it's highly important. And how you could start by doing it is the basics. So making sure that your profile is complete on whatever platform it is. Deciding what platforms you want to show up professionally, and making sure that your personal platforms are consistent with your overall brand. So if you are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram and LinkedIn, and on LinkedIn you show up as a certain type of professional, but then you've got open Twitter and Instagram platforms in which you are um, some bay in some on some beach who is projecting other things. You need to be happy that whoever is seeing that in a professional space is able to look at you in all areas of your life that you're showing to the public and still able to receive the message that you want them to receive. So let's say you have a profile on LinkedIn and you show up professionally, and your line manager is in your WhatsApp community. And so your number is saved in your line manager's phone. And you are showing up professionally at work and on your profile on LinkedIn. But your WhatsApp stories are highly controversial, or provocative in whatever context you want to put that, or inappropriate in the professional context. And so your WhatsApp story is really for your friends and that community, and that's who you're trying to engage with. That can become problematic. It really could be career limiting for you. And so those are things to be mindful of, just the basics that a lot of people tend to forget. When we think of putting ourselves out on social media and putting our personal brand, the first thought is, how am I going to show up? How can I look presentable? But the basics are also very much important, and also communicate messages and can make or break your brand in a very, very quick way. So having platforms in which you know, or your public platforms all speak the same type of message, is an important one. Another thing that they could look at doing is starting to network and engage in the different communities on the platforms that they are in, and learning how to do that. And I always say to my students who are nervous about engaging on LinkedIn is to start small. Start off initially by just watching and seeing how people communicate on the platform. So maybe before you put out your first post, read a couple of posts, see what your peers are posting, see what people in the company that you are working in or want to work at are posting. With
Sorry, everyone, I have to stop there because we have 4 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we get to the end of this and kind of tie it up well and answer any last minute questions you might have. But before we close, I just want to offer this to you today. You are on this webinar because you're very serious about your brand, and we realize it's very tied to your identity. So we want to offer you a coaching package where we help you to discover your purpose. We do this with our coaching clients and our university students because we want to help you to grow. Your purpose of your personal brand is to connect with others. And once you connect it to your why, that's going to be much, much easier. So your action or inaction will determine how people assess your work ethic. And the final thing is to close off with: the clearer your purpose gets, the stronger your brand becomes. So these are the kind of takeaways we want to leave with you today. And so, if you are uncertain about your purpose, if you feel like you still want to really explore that and say, Cheryl, I don't know what my why is. I think I have an idea, but I just need some help to solidify that. We are offering you a coaching package of 3 sessions that is normally valued at 2,500 Rand, but will be available for 1,000 Rand, and for 3 sessions, online sessions. And you can also pay that off monthly because we really want to help you. So stay in touch with us, connect with us. We will quickly answer any last minute questions, and I will share with you as well the link to the full interview with Pam. She unpacks a lot of awesome things about how you, building on to the last part about practical things, how you can use your LinkedIn and WhatsApp messages and being consistent in your public profiles, how you can actually uh, be counterproductive if you are showing up in the workplace and you don't have a good, strong work ethic, how that damages your brand. So please have a look at that. I will share the link to that now. Any other questions and comments, guys, before we leave today? You're welcome to unmute and just quickly chat. So here's the full interview that I'll share on the chat. You have that there. And also, if you could please fill in this feedback form, we will have a series of webinars that we're doing in terms of helping you to be accessing wholeness at work. So please let us know what topics you'd like us to address, how we can improve these sessions. Does the format work of doing the recording and having the person available online, does that work for you? We're here to serve you guys. We want to help you to grow. We want to be the help that we didn't have when we started out. So, any closing comments or questions? Looks like everyone is good. Pam, any closing words from you?
I just want to thank you, Cheryl, for inviting me to your session, and to everyone. I just want to wish you all the best. I think when it comes to personal branding, a lot of people get anxious about it. But I think the biggest part is really just being able to be yourself and being able to project that in a way that serves you and serves your purpose. And at the end of the day, there's no perfect way to do it. And it's something that you can continue to grow as you develop, and it can change. So don't feel under pressure. And I'd like to just encourage you, especially if you are studying right now and you're going to be graduating soon, or if you're early in your years of working, to really just be curious and see what your peers are doing and benchmark yourself against them, but in a way that still allows you to own who you are, and just share who you are with the world. I believe we all have something unique to offer, and that's really the reason behind having a personal brand. It's sharing your uniqueness. Thank you, Cheryl, and thanks everybody.
I think, Pam, that was a great line to end off with. Share who you are with the world because you have something valuable to offer. We hope we've inspired you today to be passionate, be proactive about your personal brand, be intentional about your personal brand, and we hope to see you online soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.